Hi, Critical Analysis. This is your video for Thursday, March 26th. So I wanted to start off. We left off on Tuesday's video, Tuesday, March 24th video, talking about Chapter 7. So Chapter 7 introduced the concept of patterns of organization, or like structures or rhetorical patterns, however you want to think of them. And there were 10 of them. And so the slideshow, which I will encourage you, if you didn't watch the video from Tuesday and you're watching it now, or just as a refresher, to open up that PowerPoint and kind of look through. Also visit your textbook, it goes through each of the structures as well. But I also have in here in the Chapter 7 folder the graphic organizer, which kind of just boils it down a little bit. So maybe that's helpful to kind of see it in this format. And again, this is something that if we were in class together, I would have you create your own graphic organizer, whether it's a table, a web, some kind of other visual. I've had lots of different things that students have done over the years, but just to kind of start to see how all these concepts together. So just as a quick reminder, when we talk about patterns of organization, what we're referring to is the way in which an author organizes their writing to make it easier for their reader to understand. Because our brains, when we read, if we can pick up on patterns, we're more likely to retain the information, comprehend it, and then recall it later. Because we'd be like, oh, they were comparing and contrasting, and we can remember the details better. So the 10 patterns, just as a quick overview. Definition. Simply, an author spends their paragraph defining unfamiliar words, and they may see things like means, is, defined as. Another, compare and contrast to show how things are similar or different. So they may say things like alike, similar, however, in contrast to, on the other hand. Cause and effect, the reason something happened and then the result. So they may say things like because, for this reason, as a result. Classification is when you have a fairly large topic and you break it down into parts or categories. So they'll say things like groups, kinds, types, classifications. Addition is just what it sounds like. Add additional information. In addition, also, furthermore. We had 3 orders: time order, process order, spatial order. They have similar signal words. Time, though, is answering the question when. When did something happen? So last month, March 1st, last. Process is how. How did something happen? How does something happen? So how do you do something? What are the steps involved? And so you may also see things like first, second, third, how you might also in the time order. That's why you have to look and ask the question like, is this telling me when or is this telling me how? And then we have spatial order, which is where. Where is something physically located? Under, left, right, up, down, north, south. We have listing, which is just, again, what it sounds like, making a list of items. So a grocery list, a to-do list. And so you may also use similar signal words to time order, first, next, but then you'll also kind of hopefully be able to identify that multiple things are being listed by separation of commas. And then examples, or sometimes called illustrations. It's when they just kind of give you an illustration of a concept, a little bit more details. So those are things like, for example, such as. So this kind of summarizes your patterns of organization. More information can be found in Tuesday's video, Tuesday, March 24th video, or in your Chapter 7 PowerPoint. I do want to point out this practice sheet. We're in Chapter 7, so I'm going to pull up this practice sheet here. Okay. So in this practice, I give you a couple examples. There are many reasons I prefer summer to winter. First, warmer weather is more comfortable than the cold. Second, during the summer, we have more time to enjoy and soak in the sun versus in the winter. Third, there is more time to enjoy outdoor activities compared to in the winter. So here's an instance where they are using a list. They are in a sentence format, listing reasons. First, second, third. They are also comparing and contrasting summer to winter. And I know that because we use the words than, versus, compared. So it lets you know that they are doing some comparing and contrasting there. This next example, there were two kinds of fireworks at the show last night. The first was the skyrocketing type, exploding high up in the air and producing the most dramatic effects, as well as oohs and ahs in the audience. The second type, Roman candles, shot up separate showers of sparks and colored flames. They are classifying the big concept here as fireworks. And so to help us understand what they mean by fireworks, they break it down into two kinds or type, skyrocketing and Roman candles. So the words kinds and type let me know that this is classification. And then another example here, open communication leads to healthier relationships. This is a cause-effect. The phrase leads to, that's a cause-effect relationship word. So what I'm going to ask that you do is a little bit down lower on that page, you're going to see kind of a word bank with all of our structures there. And there's going to be 10 sentences. Your job is to, and if you want to type it right on here, just like right next to it, whatever the structure name is, obviously you would either put like time, order, or definition, whatever the case is. You can type it right on there, or if you want to just send me like an email and just number 1 through 10 and put your answers next to them, that's fine. This is just practice. Again, this is something that I would have typically like passed out to you in class and we would have done together. So this can kind of see like, how are you doing with this? So I can give you feedback. How's it going? Does everyone understand? And then there's one thing at the bottom and it simply says, write your own paragraph. So try to come up with your own paragraph. And I know we did this a couple of times in class as well. I had you guys write paragraphs with a clear main idea, write paragraphs with major and minor details. So write a paragraph on anything, but incorporate one of those patterns, one of these 10 patterns. Incorporate it in there using signal words so that when I read your paragraph, I can identify what structure you're using. So again, you can just type it right here on your, again, I always feel like I spell words wrong when you guys are watching me. Type here. Or when you send me an email with your answers for the first part, you can just type the paragraph in there. And because I'm not like requiring this, because I'm not trying to like load a bunch of stuff on you because we are still transitioning, I'm going to put this as extra credit. So if you do this, I'll plug this in extra credit on your Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz, which I'm going to talk about here shortly. So this is just it's a practice, but I'm encouraging you to try it so that I can see that, how you're doing and give you some feedback there. So that, my friends, is in the Chapter 7 folder. You'll see the patterns of organization practice, and then you'll see the Dropbox where if you are typing right in the document, you'll just Dropbox it in there, or you can just send me an email with your answers and your paragraph on there. And that'll be due on the 31st. So next week on the 31st is when that'll be due. And again, I'm going to incorporate that into extra credit on the Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz, which I'm going to start talking about right now. We are not going to do anything else with our text sheet. We started the text sheet. In Tuesday's video, we did just one part of it. We did not get any vocabulary because at that point I was still waiting on Chapter 1 through 5 tests to come in. I'm still waiting on just a couple. So I did not start like any more vocabulary because we still have to do the Chapter 6 quiz. But we did complete Part 2. I think 2 of you have already submitted the Chapter 7 text sheet, which is fine. I'm not going to grade it yet, though, in case when I go over the other parts, you want to make any changes, because we will go over the other parts of this next week. We will continue Chapter 7 text sheet and retrieve our vocabulary from Chapter 7 starting next week. All right, so now let's talk about Chapter 6. We finished Chapter 6 already, minus the vocab quiz. So if you click into Chapter 6, here is your completed study guide. Okay, so make sure that you get a hold of that if you need it still. And I apologize. I will have a Dropbox, but here's your Chapter 6 quiz. So you're going to find it right in here. Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz. You're going to have a Dropbox for it. You'll pull it up. Here it is. Same as your regular quizzes. We're back to, the shorter version, so to speak. Correct or incorrect. One of them is fine the way it's written. All the rest you have to fix somehow. Leave the underlined words alone. You do not have to come up with different words for those. Just incorporate them into the sentence differently. Short answer, make sure you answer the question, and then fill in the blank. So that is your Chapter 6 quiz. That is due March 31st as well. This is where I'm going to take week 10 attendance. So this is going to help me again for attendance purposes. So please make sure you get your Chapter 6 quiz. I'm trying my best to kind of keep up with everything. If I'm not seeing things from you, I've been emailing you, I've been calling. So I am trying to keep up with it. I know you are overwhelmed. I'm certainly overwhelmed, but I'm still wanting to touch base and make sure that you're doing okay. So please reach out if you do have questions, if something's not making sense. Okay, so real quick recap there. Your Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz is due on Tuesday, March 31st. You'll have a Dropbox where you'll drop it in there. And then along with that, if you want extra credit on your Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz, you will go in here and you will complete this practice that's associated with Chapter 7, and I'll give you some extra credit points toward your Chapter 6 quiz. So we will continue. If you can't tell, this is a shorter video today because initially we did not have tons planned on our schedule because I was initially going to have some mastery skills time dedicated in class. So the video today is a little bit shorter. So you are doing two things for me, hopefully your Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz and then your Chapter 7 practice sheet that will be worth extra credit for the Chapter 6 quiz. We will continue Chapter 7 next week in next week's videos. I will be pulling up the text sheet. We'll be finishing the text sheet. We will get our Chapter 7 vocabulary words. We'll talk about your Chapter 7 vocabulary quiz. So that is coming up. The last thing, again, because if we were meeting face-to-face this week, right now, today, we will be having mastery skill time in class, like a good little chunk of time. So I just want to remind you again, I have 3 videos in here now. So I'm really hoping these are helping you. I have the inference video, fact and opinion video, and patterns of organization video. So those are the 3 videos that I have in there now. So I know some of you have expressed like concern with how you're doing in mastery skills. So my recommendation moving forward is wait until I talk about a skill in one of the videos, because as soon as I talk about the skill, I'm going to try to go ahead and make the video that's associated with that skill, and then kind of do the skill with the video. That way, if you did poorly the first couple skills, you can kind of start compensating for that with these future skills. And then we'll go from there. If I see additional problems or concerns, we will continue from there. All right, so that is all for today's video. Just one last recap. March 31st, Tuesday, March 31st, you are completing the Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz. And for extra credit on that quiz, you are completing the Chapter 7 Patterns of Organization practice sheet. As usual, keep working in mastery skills, and we will continue Chapter 7 next week. I will talk to you then.